All right. So, welcome to class 7. Today we're going to be talking about grid. So, today we are going to be talking about grid. Last time we talked about the display properties, and under the display property, we talked about the inline, the block, and the flex under the display. So today we are going to be focusing on grid. And last time we talked about that Flex allows you to lay out content side by side, or you stack them on top of each other. So which means it allows you to put content on a row, or you put it in the column, but not the two at the same time. So, but if you need it, or if you need to put your content side by side and at the same time stack them on top of each other, you can always use grid. And again, another time that grid is going to be useful is when you know the number of items that you want to pull per row, like the number of columns or the number of items you want to display per row. For example, like this feature program here, we have how many lines here? So I have 2 lines, but for each line we have 3 items there, like that. So grid, it's kind of easier to work with this kind of layout. You can use flex too, but there's a lot of things you have to do to achieve this layout. But with grid, it's quite easy because it comes with the necessary properties that you can use to achieve this layout. So when you need to put content side by side and you know the number of items that is going to be on that line, you always go with the grid, because now you just tell it this number of item. I need to make sure that all of them occupy that entire spacing that you have there if you want to give them that entire space. But majorly, grid allows you to place content on the row and at the same time on the column, just like the way we have it. So here we have 3 columns and we have 2 rows, like that. And what are the things you need to do in order for you to be able to start using grid? Just like the flex, that we have flex container and we have the flex item. So here too, we have the grid container and we have the grid item. And the same experience you have from the flex is what is here too. When I'm talking about the grid container, that's the element you display as a grid. Just like the way any element you display as flex, that's the flex container. And the direct items or the direct element inside it, they are referred to as the flex item. So here too, all the direct element inside the container are what we call the grid item. But in order for you to see what is grid line, so we need to put this in on the screen so that you can see what we meant by grid line. And as you can see, already I have these items here, like that. So in order for us to just create one more, yes, this is going to be a grid item, and this is going to be nested, like that. So nested item, like that. So from here, I'm going to be having section like this, or anything you want to put under it, like that. But don't forget, yeah, so let me remove this one so that it doesn't affect. So save, like that. So all these items we have here, they are not direct under this grid container. So since they are not direct, it means this grid container, by the time we display it as grid, what it's going to see is this div, not what is inside that div. So these are what we call the items. Then this is what we call item. So even though all these one are there, they are not part of the item to this grid container. So if you want them to be, as you can see, they are going to have their own items there, like that. Or let me just move it out so that I don't create uh more content there, like that. So save it. So all this nested here, they are not item under this one. In order for them to turn to item, then you have to display this one as grid. And once you display this one as grid, then everything under it here too are going to turn to container there. So this is the container by the time we display it as a grid, and all this one here, they are referred to as the item. Again, two entire stuff like this, not, as you can see, all this one, or let me take them one by one, like that. So let me clear this. Where is it safe? Let me bring my eraser. So sorry. Let me quickly go there. So where is this show brush? From there, clear screen, like that. So here, this is the container, like that. So after the container, what do we have? We have the item. So we have the item. So this is going to be one of the items. These another items under it. This another item. But here now, this is the item. It's not seeing what is inside it one by one. It's going to see all of them as one item because all this one that is inside here, they are nested inside. So it's not going to touch them at all. So in order for this one to turn to grid, it means this one you have to turn to container. Then it will now affect what is inside it, like that. So this is how this thing works. So let me clear the screen and let me hide this. So, for you to turn it to the container, let's go into our CSS and let me comment out all these ones so that we are not bothered by them. So again, comment out this one because I don't want them to, even though they are not going to, but since they are not targeting the same class. But it's always good that we disable it there like that. So what do we have? We have the grid container. So, but now it's not container at all. This is just a name that I'm using for it, like that as a class. So for example, background is red. Right now is not container at all. As you can see, nothing is going on there. So in order for it to turn to grid container, what we need to do is to display as a grid, just like the flex. And once you save it like this, you see that something happened, but it looks like nothing is going on. Is because there are some other properties that you need to know about under the grid, like that. So one of the properties that you're going to be using a lot is this grid template columns. So this grid template column, this is what you're going to use to define the number of columns you want per line. Here now, from this design here, as you can see, here I have 1, 2, 3. So for each row, we are going to be having three columns. So with this property here now, this is what you are going to be using to define the number of columns you want per line are there. But before you started using this one, you need to know about what we call this grid or auto flow here. So, and what does this thing mean? When you're dealing with flex, by default, it puts all its content side by side. But here now, you look at nothing is changing, but something has actually changed. Everything here is now grid, but they are still stacked on top of each other. And the reason it's happening like that is because we have something known as this grid auto flow. So what this means is that when you are not giving it any template to follow and so forth like that, which side do you want it to flow all the items to? And by default, what is just there is flowing everything on the row. So which means it will just stack everything on top of each other like that. But you can actually change the flow. So we have the grid auto flow like that. So auto flow like this. And as you can see, we have column and we have row like that. So save it as row. As you can see, nothing is happening at all because that's what is there like that. But when we change it to column, so here now, as you can see now, when you don't really specify how things are going to be laid out, where do you want to arrange them to? As you can see now, it has changed it to column now. So which means everything are going to be auto flowing to the column. As you're adding item, everything are going to be placed side by side. But most of the time, you don't want to you want to control the column yourself and you want it to control the row for you. So as you are adding more items, you know that for each line you want three. But if the item is more than three, just take the remaining one to the next line. So and that's the reason why you always leave this auto flow to row so that any other one you are not talking about, it will always move them, it will always arrange them in a row format. So everything will be on top of each other there like that. So auto flow, you will never touch this one. It's rare. Almost all my design, I've never touched it at all because of the nature of the way the design have been done. Most of the time, what you change is the column. You don't change the row because as you can see, it will always flow. If there are more items here now, it will take it to the next line automatically. So not that you be the one that will be talking to it. But if you know that is the column you don't want to talk to the column, is the row that you want to give there like that. But the only time you'll be doing that is when you're talking about the height. And most of the time you want the height to adjust automatically. What you want to limit is the width, not the height, because you don't want the user to be scrolling left and right, but they can scroll up and down there. So that's the reason why most of the time, or 99% of the time, you will not be changing this at all. What you will be dealing with is this grid template columns, which is what you are going to use to specify. You know, since you do not, it says it's going to be flowing to the row, so that means you have to define the column yourself. That's what you are saying. So when you say flow, when you are not giving in any definition, where do you want it to align all the items? So it is row, so it's stacking them on top of each other. So it's not less for you to give you the template is going to follow for the columns, and that's where this grid template columns comes in there like that. So this is what you can now use. So we have the grid template columns, assuming you are doing, you can do for the row too, but when you are dealing for the row, the one you mentioned, that's the only one you need to work with. Every other one, it will just auto flow them, and that's why we don't really touch the row, because the content that is inside it will be the one that will get adjusted automatically based on, as you can see here, the height of this thing is depending on the content that we put there. So if the content is more than this, you see that it will expand automatically there. The reason why this one is, as you can see, that the spacing down here is not the spacing down here, because the card has to adjust so that it matches the height automatically there, because the stuff is flowing on the row. But what you want to define is a column, and that's why we need to specify the column. And here, this is where you define what you want. So how many number of column you want. So if you want two, then you specify the width for each one of them. So if I want the first, like I want two column now, so that means I'm going to have, and I want the first one to be 50 pixels wide, the second one to be 100 pixels wide. So what we do is 50 pixels and 100 pixels. So what you're saying is for each, you are giving it a template now. So what you are saying is for each row, you're going to be having two column. The first column will never go past 50 pixels. The second one too will never go past 100 pixels. And in order for us to see this in, no, everything, they are not showing the background there. So we need to give background so that we are, as you can see, but you see that there is some extra spacing there. So what we just need to do here is to do all the grid item like this, give it background. And again too, let's separate them. So end child like that, or let me start with the first one. Let me use first child like that. So that one is the only one that is going to be green, as you can see. And how many do we have here? So we have let me go back to, it should be here, so let me move this one here. So we have 1 2 3 4, so we have four like that. So let's do for the next one. So grid item, grid item 2 orange, the next one third, and the fourth one like that. So save, and as you can see, where they are, don't forget all this one, they are nested, so it will not do anything with them because they are nested items. If you want to do something with them, you have to talk to their own parent before they can do something there. So as you can see, so what do we want? First item, as you can see here, it put it there. Since we define it that it has to be two, the remaining content, they are now auto flowing to the next line. As when we use colon now, you see that they will still be here there like that. But you always, any other items that did not follow the pattern that you define, just go to next line automatically. Even though, as you can see, there are more space in the parent, so there's some other property you can use. But most of the time, we don't do it in this way, because look at it now. The size is not really full inside the stuff. Or what if you want it to be 10? Or before I even get to that one, what if you want for each line you want to be 5? And what do you do? So the second one too is going to be 100 pixels, or the third one rather, the fourth one is going to be this. And once I save it, you see that it will place them there, because what we are saying here is that for each row we are going to be having 1 2 3 4 column. The first column is going to be 50 pixels wide, the second one is going to be 100 pixels wide, the third one is going to be 100 pixels too, while the last one is going to be 200 pixels wide like that. So if you have more item now, you see that all those other one will go to next line. For example, here now, let me move this one and move it down here, and this one should be 5 like that. So save, go to the page. As you can see now, the fifth item, but you see that it's going to be 1 because the first one, the first column is always 100 pixels. The second one is always 50, and so forth like that, depending on what you define here. Again, what if you want it to be 10? So that means you have to be measuring the value one by one. But what if all of them are having equal weight? They have equal weight. For example, the first one is 100, the second one is 100, the third one is 100, and the fourth one is 100. As you can see, you are repeating yourself again with the same value again and again. So if there's anything that change, you have to change all of them, and that's where this repeat function comes in. So with this repeat function, if it's the same value, you can use it to repeat that same value again and again. So instead of us doing it like this, what we can do is to use repeat like this. So repeat, you give it the number of time you want to repeat it, so 4, and what is the value are you trying to repeat? So 100 pixels. So what you're saying here is that you are still going to be having 4, but this repeat now is going to repeat it for you automatically like that. So once I save it and go back to the page, we are still going to have the same thing. And if I need to make changes, I will only do it once. So if I use 300 now, all of them, they will take 300 like that, even though they are now outside of the screen. And as you can see, that's why we don't use this definite value, unless you know that this thing, you don't want it to adjust based on its container. So, and you know, we have a value for that. When you want to adjust this thing automatically, we have the FR unit. So we have this FR unit. And what is FR unit there? This is a fractional unit, just like under flex that we're using 1, we're using 2, which is doing the ratio. So for the flex or for here, you can use this FR unit, which is fractional unit. So what you are doing here is the same thing as you typing 1FR like this, 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. Everything now is down 4. So by the time you add everything together, it's down 4. So that means this one will take 1/4, this one will take 1/4. So what they will do is look at the parent. Whatever the entire weight, this one will take 1/4 of it. This one will take 1/4, and so forth like that. As you can see now, so which is going to mean, since they be 1, 1, 1, so it means they are taking equal spacing. But now if I take the second one to be 2, so by the time you add everything together here, this is 1 plus 2, that's 3, 4, 5. So that means this one will take 1/5, this one will take 2/5, and so that means this one will be twice of the other one. And as you can see now, so because, and again, it's depending on the available space, because that FR now is one of the relative units. So it's depending on something, which is the container. So once that container change, it will recalculate its new value automatically there like that. But it will always be 2 times the other one that you have there like that. But instead of you doing like this, we can use repeat if it's the same value. So you always use repeat. So 3, 1FR. So which is going to repeat that 1FR 3 times. And as you can see, we are going to be having three column per line there like that. But if it's your auto flow is column, the same thing can be done for the row too. When it is row, when you are auto flowing to the row now, or when you are auto flowing to the column, it's going to arrange them like this. So you can do the same thing too. So instead of you using these grid template columns, you can use the grid template rows like that. So grid template rows. So the same thing you are doing there, you can tell it the number of rows you want are there. So do you want 2 rows? Do you want 3 rows? And so forth like that. But most of the time, what you want to deal with is the column, and it will help you to arrange the row. But if you want, you can do maybe 200 pixels. So what you're saying here is that the first one, so you have 150 pixels like this. But as you can see, what you're saying is that you want to do 2 rows for us first before you start auto flowing. You can see we did not talk about the third one. So after it is done with the other one, he moved this one here. But the layout there is not practical when you are dealing with auto flow to column side. The layer is not practical. The one that is practical is the auto flow of row, and you are changing the column yourself. But if you have a need for it, you can see it's there, the property is here, you just need to switch. But 99% of time, you don't need to change this auto flow. What you'll be changing is the template of the column that you want like that. So whatever item that is left, just move them to the next line automatically there like that. Yeah. Yes. Yes. In a row. Yes. Yes. Of course. No, 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 no. Nah, 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 nah. That's where media query comes in later on, which is what we are going to be talking about. What you are trying to say is to adjust. Like this one now, if I go to main website now, you see that this thing will adjust or to it will adjust. What is going on there is you are listening for the screen. What is going on the screen? Then based on the screen, you are changing your template. Whatever you give it, that's what it's going to do. But there's a way of actually doing it when you know your minimum width that it can take. So here, that's another. That's why you see that I've already put them here that you can use. So we have another one too known as this main max here, like that. There's still another one too. We have fill. So we have fill that you can use. So instead of you specify the number of items that you want, like that, you can always fill the stuff like that, and from the other side you use your main max there like that. But I always prefer to use media query because I want, like, this one now is when you are doing that fill or we are doing autofill or autofit. Those one, they are depending on the calculation you are doing here. So here now if I do autofill and then we have autofit too, so what this one will do is that it will be 1 1 because the autofill, what this thing is doing here is that just keep filling based on available space that is left. But you know when you say 1FR, you know all those one, they always want to take highest spacing. So what you can just do here, maybe we can now put here, can put like 200 pixels. So what I do here, you know, when you say 200 pixels, you know, it will just take you on. So this one will keep filling until there is no more space again. Then if there is no space, it will move the remaining. As you can see, it will keep filling, but when there is no space, it will move the remaining one to next line. For example, here now, if I reduce, it will get to a point because these three, item three cannot occupy that space, it has already moved to the next line. And so as you can see, it will now be changing. But again, so this one is not ideal because here, what if you want it to be a specific number of items per line? Then if it is not, can you see that there is still extra space left? So if that spacing that is left, just distribute it among all of them automatically. And that's where this min max comes in. So we have the min max here. So what you're saying here is that the minimum value or the minimum, that box, when it is shrinking, the minimum it must go is 150. Once it hit 150, it will just go to this 1FR. And you know 1FR, they used to calculate the remaining space based on what is there. So once I save this one now, you see that, as you can see, it's full because the space that is there is trying to go less. So since it's going less, they shift this 5 to next line and occupy the entire space. The same thing here too. If I load it, as you can see, so the remaining, it sees that you are not going less than, by the time you put this one here, it will be less than 150. What do you do? It goes to next line and take its own 1FR from here like that. But all this one too, they occupy the space that is left like that. So you can always use this to do that stuff like that when you know the minimum weight that that box must take there like that. But what I actually use here, I give it a definite, I just use 1FR straightforward. But when it gets to a particular screen, then instead of you using 3 3, just use 2 2. So you can use media query too to solve the problem, or you use it like this. But the only way you can do it like this is when you know the weight of the box. When you know the width of the, like the minimum it must go, you can always do it in this way like that. But you always see me using just repeat with 1FR, then the number of this in. Then when you get to a particular screen, we can now scale it up based on what you want. And it's being used a lot on this page or on the Mayoverse website there. Anytime you need to arrange things in the form of rows and column, you always, as you can see, this is a grid going on here too like that, because for each line we're going to have two items like that. The same thing here too. Say if I want to 1 2 3 4 5, so if I want it to always maintain this 5, just use grid. Here it is a 4 4, but again too, it will change based on this, as you can see that. So now once you go less, it's now 3 3 instead of 5 again. Again too, when you go less, to a particular screen, everything will turn to one like that. But this one is using media query to achieve that. But with Flex, it's kind of easy to specify that you want all this number of items per line there like that. So once you know that these things are going to be stacked on each other and they need to be side by side, you always go with it. The same thing too on the about page for the teams are there is being used at that place too because as you can see here too, so this is great. Once you add one item again, it will come here. So if you add another one, since there's no space again, to go down because we define it to be 3 by line for this particular screen. And for here too, it's still the same thing. And if you look at this side too, it's still the same thing because it's going to be 4 when you're on this big screen. When you go to small screen, it's going to be 2 and so forth like that, depending on the screen you are working on. So grid is very, very important. But grid go more than that. Grid is actually crazy because grid can overlap each other. So if you have a grid that needs to overlap each other, you can do it. You see the same thing I'm using here too. So if you go down, grid is what is going on here. I mean, if you look at it, so here, this is one grid. This is another. What is we have here is just 3 items. So we have 3 items are there. So this is the container. Inside the container, we have this. So let me change the color to this. So inside this, I have this box like that, and inside it, I have, don't forget when you put them in a container, so it will not affect them as a whole. So this one too, they are in their own container, and this one too, it is in own container. So inside the entire stuff, I have 3 items, but inside their own too, as you can see, that one is not using flex because it's just stacking them on top of each other. The same thing here too is just grid two that I use. Since I know there's going to be two but side by side. So here now, you're going to have this item because it's not just one thing that is there. Again, so that's another group. So this container here, we now display as grid. Then you are going to grid to be flex. So one FR, one FR there like that. And from there, inside this place is going to be grid. But you can use grid, you can use flex to do this. But with grid, it's quite faster compared to using flex to do the same thing like that. So flex and grid, you always use them a lot. But the one you use 90% of the time is flex because most of the time you just want to place things side by side or stack them on top of each other. But when you need to do crazy stuff by dealing with columns and row, you always use. For example, here now, see one of the projects that we can work on later on there like that, which is this. For example, like this calculator here. Let me see one of the design that I share with you there. So here, as you can see, we have where is the calculator project. Where do you hide yourself? Let me close this one. So the calculator should be somewhere here. I don't have it again. Loop. Yeah, so this is it. Calculator app. So if you check under the design, you see that this thing is using grid, but it's using something that I've not talked about, and that's where the grid line comes in. So we are going to be using this. So look at it. This is grid here. With grid, you can do this thing easily. But there's a problem. Look at down here. See that this one is now taking the space of 2 items. This one too is taking space. Normally, when you display as grade, each one of them have to take their own. You can't go above your column. You stay at your column. But this one here now is now moving just like our table that we talked about, that it can span. So your grid too allows you to do something like this easily. If you want to use flex to do this, you are going to create a lot of elements from here. But with grid, it's just one item that you need. And that item is what you now talk to be able to do this. So in order for us to be able to do what is here, so let's quickly create elements that can make us to have that design. So let's just create this one. So advanced, let's just call it advanced grid like this. And inside this advanced grid, I want to have a button like this. So inside the button, I'm going to have one. Let me see. So starting from 7. So you start from 7 like that. So we have the 6. Continue. Can you help me to complete it? 7, 8. No. Is this one? I look at it. You have to arrange it. You can see the way it arrange it. Seven. I'm the one that is doing something. So it's supposed to be eight, nine, and like that. And the other one is zero. Abi delete. No, this is you see. It's for this is one. It's still in the first. These are the first row. So this is the second row. I like that. So now we're done with that one. So what we need now is 4. So you need 5, 6. Then after that, you have plus like that. So you are done with that row. So the next row is 1, 2, 3, like that. So we have 1, 2, 3, and minus like that. So from there, you have the next one, which is the dot. Again, this one here now, the dot will not align properly, but you can always use what we talked about before, which is the HTML code to use this in. So again, we have 0, so we have division, but I don't want to use it division, so I want to use as a divide here. So we talked about HTML entity code. No, this one the divide is using slash. You can always type it on the keyboard. But the normal divide is one that have dot at the top and dot on it. You cannot type it on the keyboard. So to bring it out, this is the code for it there like that. Now the same thing I'm talking about this one. So we have the C dot, the center dot rather. What am I typing? Center dot. So this one will give you the actual dot at the center. The dot that I type here, that one is down below the text, not at the center of the text. So they are different. Even this one said it is down. The one they use here is down, not that. But from the design, you can again to the times they are using to is not the times because that's not the way to represent times. If it does type X here, this is not times. This is not the correct. The stuff is always kind of a slant more than this. So to get the times, you just call it to like so. This is it here, like that. So it's going to give us the symbol. So going to the page, as you can see, we have that division and we have that times are not the x because they are not the same. They always look like they are the same. As you can see, they are not. This is the x, but this is the times, so they are not the same thing. Like that. So we have all these items, but now we need to do it properly. So let's go into our this in there. So what do I have? So I have this advanced grid like this. So background color is going to be Peru like that. And for now, I want it to be spaced from the top because now if you look at it, it's jam packed with this container. So now we need to use margin top. I'm only focusing on the top. Assuming you are focusing on entire stop behind, you can mention, but since I'm only focusing on top, then you mention that side. So each one of them, they have that. As you can see now, they have more spacing at the top. And if I want the spacing at the bottom too, what I can just do is margin block. So which means you are talking about the top and bottom only, or you can go to line 2 and type margin bottom 2, but you are repeating yourself with the same value. And now I have the spacing that I want like that. But now what do we want to do? As you can see, it is all the button by default they are inline, so which means they take up the spacing of the content inside them. But now we just need to display it as grid. And once we display it as grid, as you can see now, that's the reason why I told you that other one was changing. The reason you did not see is because all those items already on top of each other. But as you can see now, see that something happened. So it's now left for us now to define the number of columns we want per line. As you can see, for each row we have 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So what do we need to do? We just need to use our grid template columns like this. So since it's the same value repeat, there's going to be 4, 1 FR like that. And once we save it, as you can see, we are going to have all these items. So let me style all the button. So we are going to have the advanced grid like this, the button that is inside it. So I don't like the border that is there. Those line that is there should be none. Like this. So the background, have I changed the background? The background color, no, I don't want it to be transparent. It should be purple, like this. Then the what else do I want? So border radius should be around that 0.5 rem, just to give us this kind of eye. Again, I don't like that border radius. It looks somehow ugly, but 0.25 rem, which is 4 pixels, which is going to give us this kind of a tiny this thing. But if you look at their own, as you can see, there is a space in between each item. By now you know what to use here, which is going to be gap. Now gap is what you use to force a space. But don't forget we have two types of gap. You have the row gap and you have the column gap. And you know if you give it one value, it will just use with that. So let's just do one area so that it gives us that gap in between. What's wrong with this thing? Ah, what's wrong with my gap? Let me see what is going on. So where is it? So we have all these buttons. Where did it's because I put it at the wrong place because something is wrong. So of course, when you type something and you did not see it, you should know that something is wrong somewhere. And that's why I come to check it. I put it at the wrong side because this is supposed to be on the container, not on the item. Yeah. So as you can see now, we have all those spacing inside the box. If you want the spacing around the box too, you can always use our padding so that we have spacing around that box. So you know your gap is in between. It doesn't deal with the edge at all. So now we have this our box like that. So in order for this thing to look well, so let's reduce the width of it. So the width should just be around that 350 pixels, like that, so that it will look like that calculator. You know, calculator is not that, the width is not even that much. So let me even reduce it to 300 so that you know all the items they are depending on their container. So the FR, whatever the spacing you have there, that's what they will divide and share. So this 300, they are going to share it among each other like that. So again, too, I don't like that color that is there. So the color should be white, like that. So the font should be bold. The font size. So this is let's just use 2 rem, which is 32 pixels, which is going to make it bigger, like this. So we have this again. Too, is not showing that it is something that is clickable, like that. So you know we talked about that one last time, which is the cursor pointer. So that's what you can always use to change the cursor hand. So you can always change it to anything you want, but pointer is what you always use. As you can see, there's a lot of them. So if you want to show the progress, which is kind of a crazy, so you to show progress. But again, too, it's depending on the operating system. The window, you know, their own is that circular this thing without that point, but that's wrong. That's not the correct. So you're supposed to show that it is something that is clickable. And again, too, I want to do something so advanced. So anytime it is over, I want to change the background color, like that. So it's still going to be purple, but I'm just going to make it light version of it like that. So which kind of give us that you're on top of. So as you can see, so anytime you move there, it will change background to a light version. And later on, we're going to be talking about some stuff there like that, which is going to be transform like this. So we're going to be talking about this transform property. It have a lot of value you can use. One of them is this scale, like that, which I'm going to scale it by 10%. So what this one is doing is that whatever the box used to have before, just scale it up by one. Is just means it's that normal size. If you increase it above one, then you are multiplied by whatever number you are. This means 1.1 multiplied by whatever size that is there before. That's what is going to be the new size. And if you reduce the number, you know, anything below one, you know, the value will be reducing, which is going to be like a percentage there. So now, as you can see, it will increase it just by 1%. If I want it to go larger, or double the size, so I can use to, you see that it will always be times two of whatever that is there before, but I can make it smooth, like that, so which is what we now have transition. So we talk about, I'm bringing it down now so that we'll be able to talk about it in the next class, like that. So I have transform, like that, and save. So what are all these saying? So you see now, can you see now? It's not like before that it's just jumping from one value to another. So it will, when anytime the value that I mentioned here change, it will transition from the old value into the new value by using this number of seconds that we have here. But we talk more about how to. So I'm saying transform. Anytime the transform value change, before the scale is one, but now after when you over on it, it change from one to two. So for it to move from one to two, it will take it 0.3 seconds. to move from that new value. And that's the reason why you see that it's come up better, like all this kind of and simple animation going on there like that. Maybe later on when you over on it, you want to come out, then rotate that animation. That one too is here that you can always do. Just like all this thing that you are seeing here, you go to Mailverse now, and you go to any page, you see that some of the items are going to slide in or slide whatever store depending on what you want there. As you can see now, so this is animation there like that. So you can always do all this in with CSS. So this is transition is just for simple stuff, but when you need advanced stuff, you do the animation on there like that. So if time permit us tomorrow, along with the layouts, or that means the responsiveness, so we add all this one to it. But for now, so what do we want to do? What do we want to do? So in order for you to see what is going on here, I'm going to disable this grid so that I'm going to disable the where is it? So I'm going to disable this gap so that you can understand the concept of grid line. Please look at this, So look at it here. So in grid system, we have something known as grid lines. So all these items you have here, there is a line around them, and you can turn it on by clicking on this grid. As you can you see that that line is there? So this is what we call the grid lines. So this is one line, this is another one, this is another one, and all these lines they have number attached to them. If you want to see the number, just click on the grid here, so it will bring all those numbers, because these numbers are necessary in order for you to be able to do what you are seeing here, because those number is what you are going to use to control where it needs to start and where it needs to stop there like that. So we have grid line, and on the grid line, as you can see, for the column one, this is one, this is two, three, four, all the way to five, and you can even mention it backward by using negative value. So like that. So minus one is the same thing as the last grid line. Minus two is the second to the last, minus, and so forth like that, depending on, because the way this number is going to come outside is depending on the number of items you have inside it. So if I go back here and change, instead of it to be 4 now, if I change it to 6, save it, you see that it will recalculate the value. So now we can talk to this x now to cover up this remaining space that is left. But in order for it to cover this remaining space, as you can see, there are numbers attached to it. So we can just talk to the x that it will start, as you can see from this side, is starting from what? It started from 4 like that, and it's going to stop at 7, or you can use -1 to mention that for this one. Again, from the top here, if you want to mention up and down, then that means it will start from 3 and it will stop at 4, or you can use -7. But this -7, I don't trust it, because if you change this in, I know it will recalculate the new value. So if I take it back to 4 now and save it, you see it's still the same thing here like that. But something supposed to happen 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Yeah, we did not complete it, so that's why our this thing is not. So we need to put this reset and that equal there like that, because we're supposed to be having empty space. That empty space, but that doesn't mean you cannot put it up, because when you do it like that, it will overlap each other. It doesn't care. So here we have reset, and what do we have again? We have equal like that. So save it. You see now these two are here, but we have extra spacing left. Is this thing okay? Yeah, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it's okay. So if you look at it now, this one's supposed to take 2, and this one's supposed to take 2 like that. So how do we do it? So we need to talk to reset to start from here. As you can see, it needs to start from 1 and end on 3. Don't the line, this is 1, 2, even if there is gap there, it doesn't care about the gap. Oh, that's why I'm showing you without the gap. So if I put the gap there, that line doesn't create separate line in between the gap. It's still 1, as you can see. So this is 1. This one will always be 2, no matter the spacing you are having it. That line is still 1. So the same thing, the next one, and the next one. Not because you put gap here, so it will not say this is 1, this is another line. No, it's just one line that is there. You are the one that just force that space in between them. So this will only be 1, the next one will be 2, the next one will be 3, 4, and 5, and so forth like that, depending on So based on this line now, you can now talk to each item to start from a particular side. Now this, what you are doing here is you are giving the parent a template which is going to use to place all the items. But you can go to each item and talk to them that, even though your parent has already arranged you like this, oh, that's not how I want you to be. So you can now control each one of them separately. And how do you control each one of them separately? So let's give them class so that it will be easier to work with. So let's just give it this one class equal op like that for operation, and this one is going to have class reset op like that. You doesn't need to use this, you can call it anything you want, but I'm using a name that is well describing what they are doing. So from here now, we can select that our reset op like this. So first of all, let's give it background color maybe like this yellow, like that. So save like that. So that means I did not select the stuff correctly. Reset op, yes. Yeah, it will not. Do you know why it's not working? Do you know why it's not working? See, those are the problem that comes in now, and those are the things that I've already explained before. So in order for you to see what is going on, can you see what is happening? Can you see that it's not applying it? Do you see that I draw the line? Why? Based on what we've talked about before. You see that it's picking background from here, but it did not pick the background from here. Why? The reason is that the specificity. Look at the specificity of this one. It is what? 10. But if you check the specificity of where he's picking it from, can you see 11? That's why I talked about specificity that time. So one way of doing it is to force it by using important, or you increase the specificity. Another way of increasing the specificity is just by doing advanced grade like this, and or you can even add this one, but this one is just overkill. Once you do it like this, you can see this 10, this 10. So by the time you check what is there, you can see now it is 20. So since 20 is bigger than 11, once you save it, it will pick it up. So that's why I talked about all those things that time. So that by the time you started working, something will start coming in, but it will look as if the thing is not working. It's working is because there is some basic stuff that is supposed to have been taught, which is the reason why we started with all those selector. We talked about the specificity. But anytime you do something and it's not working, the first thing you have to do is to come here and check why. So once you see the stuff, it's not left for you. Why did it draw the line there? So you look for it. But based on seeing it, I already know that it's specificity stuff. No, it doesn't care the whether this one come last or it come first. Specificity always win, except if you use important. If I don't want to, but this important is bad, shouldn't be using it at all, because it means if you want to do any other changes somewhere too, you start using important. So if I save it like this, it will not work again. So another way, which is a bad way, is by using this important. What you are saying is that forget about any other places. This is the one that is very important there, which is crazy. So you should always use specificity first before you start using. The only time you'll be using this important is when you are not the one that actually type the CSS. Maybe you connect to online CSS. Maybe you got the CSS online and you don't want to be changing that, or you cannot change their code. So what you do is that you can override it using that important. But most of the time too, you should always use the specific to override it. And one way of doing it is by creating specific that is going to override what is going on here. And one way of doing it is just by me using this advanced stuff like that. If I still want to increase it more, add button join again. So this one too we still do the same thing, but now specificity is now 21, which is waste of our typing because is 20 is bigger than what we have at the top already. So there is no need of increasing this because it will still work. So again, to let's change the color. Let's change the color. So the color, we just reverse the color. The color is going to be that RGB that we have here. If it is looking nice, just the yeah. So as you can see now, we have so you know the overstate. We said something should happen. So that's why it's but let me just disable this one for now. Like that, because we don't want all this. Let everything just stay like that. So let's do the same thing too for that one. So we have the advanced grid and we have the equal OP like this. So let's save it and go back to the screen. It did not, that means is it EQ? Yeah, I use EQ, not full equal. So EQ, yeah. So as you can see now, we have the stuff. So how do we make this one now to cover from here to here? So what you need to do is to look at the number. Normally, if I'm doing it, I don't even need to turn this green line. since you already know what you're doing. So you know that this is one, this is so you already know that this is always start from here. So this is one, this is going to be two, and this is going to be three. And that's where you want it to not for one, two, three. It's just one. You don't because the spacing there. Let me turn it on back, and that's why I'm turning it on. You can see it's three. It's not four. When you move to the other one, is when you get to four. So each this is line one. The entire stuff here is just line two. Entire stuff here is line three, and this is line four, and this is line five. This thing is now more. Let me increase the width. So the content is not going outside of the screen. So let's increase the width to 380. We don't care about it for now so that we have enough space. So now what do we now want to do? We want this your reset now to cover one because see that's where it started from. To cover two and it will go to three. So how do you do that? So from the parent, what you are doing is grid template columns. But from the item, what you'll be doing is grid columns. You remove the template because you are not giving template again. You are specifying where it's going to be. From the parent, you are using template. But from the items, what you'll be using is the grid columns. And this grid column too is a short-term property. All these items we'll be using, they are short-term property. So what we just need to do here for that our reset, we need to call grid columns. Not, you can see, please look at it. Grid column. So grid column is a short-term property for start and end. So you can know, you need to specify where it's going to start and you need to specify where it's going to end. So when you are using this single value, you give it the start slash the end. When this is short-term property like that. So when you give it to the end number, or you can only use span. So if you don't want to use line, you can tell it the number of column to take. When you are using line, it means it follow line to stop. But here now look at it. How many column is it going to take? One, two. Line is one, two, three. But the number of column is going to take is two. So here you can just say instead of doing this, you can just say span column number like this. So if you know the number of column to take, just mention the. It will start from here, but it will take this number of column. Or if you know the number line, you can just mention the line number like that. For example, here you just said it's going to end. So for example, here let's put it. So here we have the grid column. It's going to start from one and it's going to end on what? Three. So by the time we save it then and go back to the stuff, so it started from one, two, and it will end on three. If I want it to stop here and shift this equal to the other side, I just need to increase it to four like that. So save, you see that it will start from one, two, three, and it will stop on four. But instead of me doing the number, I can just say span three because what I use, as you can see, one, two, three column like that. So when you know the number of column, just use span. But if it is the line you want to use, mention the number line like that. So when you use span, there you are talking about the number of column you want to take. But when you leave it like this, you are talking about the line number. So save like that. You see that the same thing too for this equal. But now look at this one. It started from where? Now this is one, two, then it start from three, four, then to stop at five. So that means this one, his own is going to be grid column, three, then five. So save, and you see it too. If I want it to take this side, you can tell it to take it too. Like, so it's not just about column alone, you can talk about row. So again too, we have the grid row like that. So from the grid row, you mention the number. So what's the row? You know, this is one. So let me turn on the line number. So you know, this is one, two, three, four. So as you can see, you can tell it to start from four and it will stop at six, or what it will destroy the layout. So four, and I want to span how many? Say one, two. So just span two like that. So save. You see now. So you can see it from four. You can see now that the layer has changed. So it doesn't care. You can even make it overlap other content too. If you want it to overlap. Like if you define the two of them, you can see this one here, it will never leave that side. No, this one, since they are auto, so they will always change. But this one that will give a definite stuff, we can make this one to overlap it instead of us just doing like this. So what we can just do here, so I can just, instead of it to start from three, instead we're going to start from two like that. So it's going to because I did not define, I did not define the row for it, so it will move it because the row one is not defined. What we define is just the column. But once you define the row and column, you can make them to overlap. But there is no, I've never seen any practical application for that one like that. But there's some places you want to overlap things on top of each other. There's someone that even use it. There's something that we normally do there like that. There's going to be image on top of the image. There is going to be content there like that. What you use is background image. Then on top of that image, you now put your content. But instead of you doing that, you can use grid. What you do is that you overlap the two of them on top of each other like that in the container. For example, here is what I'm talking about. So I'm going to have a div overlap like this. So inside this place, I'm going to have image, which can be, let's use that. Let me go back. So I think the images, and let me use this box model images. Then from there, I have this P, and I have this lorem 34 like this. So save, go to the page. You see that, no, this is white. I don't like white background because you not really see. I think let me use this flexbox. Yeah, so as you can see now, you see that the content is down, but I can overlap the two of them on top of each other. So what we can just do here is so we have the overlap like this. So what we just do is to display it as grid. Then all its item or everything that is inside it, what we just do is the grid. So we have the grid column and we have the grid row like that. Again, too, we have the grid area, but that one we will not be explaining it for now. We can be talking about that one later on like that. So we have this grid. Where are you? So grid row. So this is going to be 1 minus 1. No, 1. Oh, no. That one is for the column. Let's use column. Yeah, let us do it like this. So what we can just do, by default, when you display something as grid, when you display something as a grid, like that, you need to stack them on top of each other. So in the parent, by default, is just going to be 1 row and 1 columns are automatically there like that. So what we can just do here, so grid column, so this is going to be 1. Let me, where is it? Where is that container? So that you can see. So put the line. This thing is too big. So what we can just do, yeah, we can actually talk to it. So inside the overlap, then we have the image. What you just do is the max width. You don't expand anyhow. Max width is your 100, no percentage is only depending on the parent. Wherever your parent stop, that should be your maximum place. You stop like that. So as you can see now, we have the line there like that. So if you look at it for the other one, as you can see, we only have 1 for the column. 1 is just column. So we can place the two of them on top of each other by just doing the 1 slash minus 1 is just the same thing as saying start from 1 all the way to the end, because end of columns is always minus 1. If you have 30, the last one is still the same thing as minus 1 like that. And once you save the stuff like that, you make the container. Where is it? So let me see. So you talk to the container, and from there you place them. Let me see. Uh, mm, so I have this 1 and minus 1. Yes. So where did it stop? It should just be. So we have the grid rows like that. So let me check the number. As you can see, this is 1, and this is going to be 2 like that. So you can just give it that start from 1 to 1 and 2. So you can use this to place content on top of each other like that. But I don't use this method. Like you can see now, they are now on top of each other, because you can only, once you place them at the same place, they will always be on top of each other. So from here now, if I want, I can always move this other one downward and do whatever I want with the content inside it, with a lot of crazy stuff like that. So what I can just do here is that, yeah, so instead of me doing it like this, what I can just do here, use this div. It will not see the nested item. So that div is not there. What I will now do is that display this div as flex, then move everything that is inside it downward. So inside this overlap now, what we just need to do, there's a div there. So display it as flex. Now once it's flex, now align is what we need to move up and down. So we can just say align item flex end like this. So save, and as you can see, the text will now be aligned to the bottom left. And if I want it to align to the bottom right, now you give it definite width, and so now we combine both the grid and the flex together to be able to achieve what I want. Or another thing is here, just to give this one background color. So but now I'm going to use the RGBA that we talked about. So it's going to be 00, which is black, like that. So it's going to be semi transparency like that, so that this one will not be taking more attention from, or even increase it more. Then the color is going to be white, because black we already use. Now it give me this stuff. But if I want to do it normally without using this method, what we can do here is to just use that image. Instead of us using the image element, we just use it as background. We now use background blend mode to blend the color, just like what we did in our last this thing there for this flex example there, like that. So you can see now, it's just now what next for you now is now your own thinking to combine all these things together. And that's the reason why we are going to be working on different design, so that you see how you can put all these things together there, like that. So this flex, this is where we don't really have much on the grid. So this is where we'll be stopping on that grid. But tomorrow there, tomorrow, or let me check the time. We still have enough time. It's 1 hour already. So tomorrow there, we're going to be talking about this part here, which is media queries. So media queries now is what you're now going to be using to determine what you want to show to the user based on their screen size they are using there, like that. So as you can see on my other side, when you're on a bigger screen, you see that the card, it is 6 or it is 5 per line, and when it is below a particular screen, it changes the stuff. So we're going to be talking about the media query to do what is going on this page tomorrow. Yeah, so this is what was taught.